Welcome to another Photorec.tv critique. I'm Toby. I'm going to be taking a few moments to go through, share some thoughts on these images, and provide some editing tips and tricks. This is a great way not only to improve your photography by getting feedback on your images, knowing what to look for next time as you're setting up compositions, what to watch out for, but it also helps with editing. And these are available to my supporters at the $3 a month and higher level. You can learn more about that at photorec.tv/support. Let's dive right into this first image. I love these green hexagonals here and the reflections that come down from those. I love all of this until I get here. These bright lights, anything much brighter than the rest of your composition is going to grab your reader's eye like a magnet grabs something metal, paperclip maybe. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to move over to Develop tab, get my crop tool, and I'm going to just bring this in. I've got the lock on, so it's keeping that aspect ratio the same as it was before. And just getting rid of that bright light over there. Now we have a much more balanced composition. Everything has about equal weight to it. These lights are not our subject. If they were interesting and they were our subject, we could talk about leaving them in, but they're not. Another nice thing this does when we bring in our right-hand side is we get rid of this foreground here that added nothing either. Just kind of was out of focus, indescript stuff, sidewalk or something. So I want to move this somewhere where I get a good bit of this reflection, but not a whole lot more. Now let's hit done. And I think we have a stronger composition, although you know what I'm noticing? I've chopped that cool light right there. Can I include just a little bit of that cool light? I think I can. Now there's a blue one too. We could get greedy and try to include that, but I think we're going to end up getting too much into the gold. So there we go. I didn't want to chop that off. We have a little bit down here. So this is where I'm going to just shift it up a little bit. What I started to think or say is you could go to a 16:9 crop here. I do that a lot. If you watched my videos, you know that I think it's safe to say I'm a little in love with that crop right now. It just gives a kind of nice panoramic feel. And to something like a cityscape, it certainly isn't appropriate for everything, but something like a cityscape, I think this is nice. We've now gotten rid of some of our, kind of background up here that didn't really offer anything. No stars, no clouds. And really our emphasis now is on the cityscape and these reflections that they provide down below. I think that all looks very, very nice. I'm not going to do a ton of editing on these, just a couple of tips. One thing that I love is using that gradient tool. So I'm going to use this gradient tool to just, struggling here, when you want to rotate it well, grab it out at the edges, to just really kind of make this colors and the reflection pop. All I've done here is bumped up our exposure a little bit and our saturation. We can do a little bit of clarity to really kind of make that come out as well. And you know, there's always just we want to bring the blacks down a little bit, bring the contrast up a little bit, and that looks pretty nice. If I was working longer, I'd do another gradient over here that brings out the shadows just a little bit in these and makes the highlights pop as well. I think this is a really nice image now that we've got that kind of distracting light. We've got a little bit of glow from it still over here, but not enough to be bothersome. And I think this all looks really good. Let me just turn the crop tool on real quick again and make sure that we are leveled. And you know what else I like to do sometimes is if I'm not feeling confident that I know it's leveled, I'll just come down here and hit the level tool. And that does look just a little bit better to me. Nice. Now we've got Andy's sunrise at Angkor Wat. I am extremely excited. I'm headed here in, what is it? Winter, January 2018. The trip just sold out, but if you're super interested in going here as well, you can join it. It's part of the Vietnam extension next year. Okay. This is cool. I like a lot of this, but there are some things that could be done to make it better. Most of those are not editing. The first thing that strikes me is this is a great spot. You shot the sun, or you shot the scene at f4. 1/4000th of a second. You did that to create a silhouette that makes this interesting here. Let's get that off for a second. We have these nice towers of Angkor Wat that have some really cool shapes and designs to them. I also like that you really were careful down here and you gave it just a little bit of room. I would have liked a little bit more room. Just a little bit more breathing room, because up here it's interesting to a point, but there's a lot of just kind of empty space. And what is an amazing temple on this water is just diminished a little bit, shooting it at this wider angle and leaving all of this room up above it. I would have shot a little tighter, filling the frame a little bit more. I love the fact that you silhouetted it though, and I would have gotten a little bit more of that reflection and a little bit more room down below. Now, one of the things that you can do with aperture, people often ask, what aperture should I shoot this at? And general scenics, f8 is great. That's what they say, and it works really nicely. In this case though, this might be one of those times where you want to go higher. Higher aperture, so we can actually go back to Morgan's picture, I think. Morgan's was shot, oh, no, can't use Morgan's as an example, it was shot at f2.5. Higher apertures, f12, f16, they start to create a cool starburst effect from the sun if it's running up against something. You're just shooting the sun in the sky, it's just too much of a bright ball of light, can't do anything with it. But if you kind of hide part of the sun behind something so that it's creeping out like this is here, Andy, you will get a much more cool sunburst effect. So that's what I would have done here in that case, and shot a little tighter. Editing wise, well, let's go to my favorite old 16:9 to try to get a little bit more of this here, like that. Just really kind of emphasizes the temple is what we're looking for. And of course we can hit level. I thought, yeah, that seems a little bit better again. Although, you know what, it was close enough. And that's really all that I'd suggest. The only other thing is these birds up here. Are they birds? That almost looks like, these look like dragonflies. Wow, that's interesting. There's almost so many of them that they are, some of them, once you zoom in, you can tell the dragonflies, but they almost look like dirt spots. I might take a few out, especially the smaller specks, and this might be something else to think about. If you'd shot it at a much higher aperture and a much slower shutter speed and allowed some of those to, because I imagine most of them are moving very quickly, move very fast through the frame, then they would have blurred themselves out. That's quite a bit of an after the fact. I tell you, I don't think it straightened it right. I think you had it straight. Let's go back there. Yep. And one other thing I want to do real quick, just see what this looks like black and white. Nope. It's better in color. I just don't necessarily love this up here. I might try to warm that up a little bit. Andy, I can see that you've done a lot of work on it already, including bringing the clarity all the way up. That does make those shadows pop nicely, but I'm going to grab a gradient here, and I'm going to bring a gradient down over this top area. And to me, this looks like sunrise. Yeah, that's what you titled it. And I'm just going to try to kind of warm up this area here to make me feel like it is more of a sunrise. We don't necessarily need to bring the exposure up though. And let's just really bring that down so that we get this nice warm sunrise tones. Too much tint. I want more of the yellow, but not too much. Somewhere around there. And that exposure is good. Let's come back into your edits. Brought the whites way up, the blacks way down. Let me undo that a little bit because that was keeping some of that blue too harsh in there. And I think that looks a little better. I'm going to back the vibrancy off a little bit, but pump the saturation just a tiny bit. There we go. I think we've done a better job there, and we could even take the gradient tool and come down here in this area, invert mask, so that we get, and so it's doing the same thing. We're really kind of bringing out the yellows to reflect the yellows that are up in that area there. Don't need quite that much saturation. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. Before, after. Much more sunrisey. This is a little overdone here. I would back that off a little, but I think that's a nice stop. This looks very familiar. This is a place I was on a McKay trip not too long ago, and I don't know exactly who sent this in, but this was a cool scene. We've got this old boat, kind of beached, ropes leading off in all different directions. We've got an old castle back here on the right, and we've got this sunken boat over here, which at low tide it was actually not sunken, and then we've got the town back here. We've got edits. I can see that you've already nicely tried to balance it. Let's hit reset for a second and see what you started with. All right. And let's undo that reset. Okay. I would try to bring up our shadows a little bit more over here on the right side. So I'm just going to bring that up just a little bit more. I want that area to show. And maybe even bring up our overall exposure a tiny bit. I'm going to hit the J key and watch out for, we've already started to lose detail in that area. So I'm going to back off that exposure. So my goal there was to avoid clipping the whites. Tiny bit there. Putting the J key on shows our clipping of our whites and our blacks. That's no detail in that area. So I'm going to come over here and see if I can back off the blacks a little bit and bring those shadows up a tiny bit more. Little bit of loss of information down here really is fine. Hitting the J key takes those back away. And I think that's a little bit more balance of an exposure. Before, after. Now, I think we've done a nice job of capturing this castle balanced nicely with this and this little boat that grabs our eye back here. One issue I have with this composition though is this white bright building right back here kind of running into the boat. I've got no immediate answer for that. One thing that might work is to shoot just a little bit lower and shoot up at this boat so it's kind of towering above us. And that's going to put this a little bit higher in the sky and may separate it a little from this area. Another thing we could try is getting the brush tool and just bringing down the highlights and the exposure of that area just a little bit. What's my flow at? 47. Let's get our flow up a little bit higher, but not grab that thing. And I'm actually going to run that over those houses in general. I just want them to not stand out so much, not seem like holding down spacebar gives you the little hand so you can shift around. Not seem like they're really jumping out at us back there in the distance. They're in a shadow of a cloud. At least some of them are. Let's make the rest of them kind of look like they are as well. Hitting the Z key will back us back out. I think that's a little bit nicer. A couple other fun things I think would be nice to try here is to brighten this grass right here. It's got a little bit of sun on it. See if we can get a little bit brighter. And possibly one other quick way to see if we could get this side of the boat a little bit brighter. To get that gradient, bring it down in this general area and have it bring that exposure up. And what I like about the gradient is how easy it is to move around. And edit. Let's just brush in a little bit more up here in the corner. And notice we can use, whoopsie, I did a bad job. Auto mask should have been on. Let's erase what I've done there. But what I was going to say is notice we can use lines on the boat to kind of guide our work. Really got to watch out for. One telltale sign of sloppy editing is what I just did there. And that is to have kind of halos around areas you've you've lighted up. I think it's much better to have a little bit of a darker edge that can look much more natural than having a halo that sticks out. Really got to watch for that. So what I'm saying here is we got this kind of, I can't remember exactly what these lines are called on the boat here. Basically it's a bumper. We can use that and not paint down below it. And that, because we have a natural break, kind of hides our editing a little bit. But we can paint down in the belly here just a little bit. Just a little. And you could reduce your flow and kind of fade that in a little bit more. And there I think we have a much more balanced composition now. All right, next image. Maxim has this Traverse City State Hospital utility tunnel. You've made it black and white. We're working with your DNG. I can't see any of your edits. Maybe you haven't made any other than converting it to black and white. Actually, is it truly black and white? I think you have some hue turned on here, just a tiny bit. Let's go back to black and white. Oh yeah, we can see just a little bit of colors in there. Well, I think this is a fantastic image. I love this. Your exposure is balanced so nicely in here, and I don't know if that's some of your post-processing or not. The detail is excellent. I wonder, I feel a little high in the tunnel, and I wonder if we were down just a little bit lower, if we felt like we were looking straight down the tunnel instead of kind of looking down at an angle. That's very minor though, and I really don't have anything else to add, I think. Let's see, if we just bring the clarity up a little bit, can be fun. Bring the highlights down a tiny bit, see if we can get a little bit more of a balanced exposure in here. But again, I think overall you've done a really nice job just making some slight changes. Yeah, I don't want to, you lose some of that mood when you bring it up a little bit too much. And I love this hint of stairs back here. So we know this goes off somewhere. I think that's really cool. There's your original. There's mine after editing. I'm generally not a fan of kind of a bluish tint or hue to images or anything other than color or black and white, but I think that works well there. I think I like my black and white better. This is a great place for people watching to comment. What do they like? Which one version do they prefer? Overall, though, I think this is an excellent image. Kyle has a 3-shot HDR of the Eiffel Tower. And I believe you have your JPEG version where you say ghosting fixed. What I don't detect really is any ghosting. Here's the original DNG. Here's the ghosting fixed. Nope. I think it looks fine. I will say that, wow, that's a lot of contrails in the sky. I believe those are all contrails. That's a lot of airplanes flying. This is a fantastic image, but nicely illustrates something that I think photographers can do more often when shooting in a place where there's lots of people, and that is not necessarily wait for everybody to leave. That's not going to happen anytime soon. But wait for people to be in a position that helps your composition. We have this dome out on the horizon, maybe Notre Dame. I don't remember exactly, but we've got this lady kind of running right into it. And that's a little distracting to me. It's minor, but if we just waited a minute or 30 seconds, it looks like she would have passed on by this way. And so I would love to see a shot where she's kind of in the same perspective, the same distance, same size as these other people over here. This guy's fine breaking the horizon up here. I like his pose. It gives a little bit more motion to this area and something to see, but it doesn't detract from our kind of Paris skyline other than the Eiffel Tower. So when set up someplace, you've taken a shot, study it for a minute. Can you wait there another minute or two and take a few more shots and then see if the people that have moved through and in and out of the frame can strengthen it some way? All right, but we are going to, I think, Feels like it's the Eiffel Tower is leaning just a tiny bit. I want to bring it up like that. I like that. And we've got a bird up here, half blurred on the right on the edge of the frame. I'm going to use the little spot removal tool. I can see that you've done some already. You've taken some spots out. That's just somewhere right around there. Looks pretty good. Whoops. And this guy over here we could take out too, the same thing. Overall, I think this is a really neat image. I do wonder though if we've got our third composition here. So you've used your PowerPoint lines nicely. What happens if we come in and get rid of the statue there? It is a little close to the edge of the frame now, but I don't feel like the lady statue was adding anything, and now I feel like it's a little bit stronger. It's another one for the commenters to write in about. What I don't like about what the crop I've just done is the fact that we've run right into one of these black squares now, and Kyle did not have that issue. I don't want to get far enough over there that we've done that. So, and then that makes it feel a little bit less even. I'll let you decide. But overall, I think this is great. Again, similar to the Angkor Wat, I think you could work on, this is another sunrise, so I think you could work on kind of warming up the sky just a little bit higher as well. But overall, pretty cool. And I wonder, did you really need to do an HDR? Because you don't have a ton of detail in the foreground, although the sun is in it. I wonder if you could have just brought up the shadows enough in a single image to get that detail out. Don't make things more complicated for yourself if you don't need to, would be my suggestion. Yoast has this kind of misty forest. I like it. I love this green. The green feels fairly new, spring-like, but maybe I see some hints of fall right here. Something I've talked about a lot and I've struggled with in the past as well is deciding how much foreground to include. In this instance, there's just really nothing going on here. There's nothing that leads our eye up to this path and to this green. There's these little bits of green that just kind of catch my eye. So I'm just going to bring it up just to get rid of those a little bit. But come over somewhere in here. I want to give this green a little bit of room. This trunk is very strong right there. And somewhere around here, I feel like we've made a little bit of a stronger, more tighter composition that leads into this area. Now I see you've actually brought your highlights up. Why? I'm going to bring them back down. And I think I like this idea of this kind of glow through here is a little bit more softed, a little bit more muted with them like that. The other thing that I'm noticing is that this trunk here, let's go down, your tint use +8. Have you made adjustments in the green? You have. You've brightened the luminance a little bit. I think that's great. You could shift this green to the right just a little bit, just make that pop. Just a little bit of a deeper green. But what I was looking for is this trunk feels very green to me. Almost overly green. This one here some too, but we don't see it as much. This is almost a completely unbroken trunk with just a little bit of intersection there. This is where you can, you have actually done some green in the shadows, split toning. That's what I was going to say. I would lean towards, you can see this, what split toning, we're going to work on an article about this soon. What split toning allows you to do is kind of a soft color overlay to the shadows or to the highlights of your image. And in this one, I think the shadows could be a little bit warmer than greener. Somewhere around here, but I'd like to make it pretty subtle. Somewhere around there. Let's see what it looked like when I brought it in versus now. So I've taken away that green tint from this kind of darker area of the image. And to me, this looks a little bit more natural and balanced, but still maintains that kind of misty morning. Nice shot. We critiqued we critiqued an image from Karen in the last week's Mishmash. It was similar to this, wasn't it, Karen? A quieter, more still morning, very misty. We've lost our mist here in this one. This is similar to Yosa's in that we've got this foreground element that to me doesn't add anything. This is also, talking about at the time of taking it, I think an excellent example of what you could do with a longer exposure. I think a long exposure here would be really neat and allow us, well, here, let's see what we can get out of that rock in the foreground. Okay, so it's there, the detail and the information is all there. Because it's running right up against the edge though, that bothers me. Give elements in your composition space to breathe, to look like they are purposefully and completely there. So close to the edge. You did leave room, but it's so close to the edge, it creates a little tension for me. Now, long exposure here, a couple of seconds, would soften this water that would completely reflect kind of the cool texture in the clouds, and with a rock like this would offer a nice kind of juxtaposition. You've been using that word a lot. I don't know if it's the best word to use in this case. It would offer a nice contrast to the hard, rock versus very soft water. Because this water has been captured at a normal shutter speed, it doesn't look soft. It's got all of these waves and ripples and shadows that are all captured, and it looks very similar to the rock. So I would love to see a longer exposure here. That all said, because you didn't do that and you didn't quite leave room, I'm going to come up. And well, you know what? Let's go to 16 by 9. And we got that little buoy over there as well. I would ignore that buoy. Sorry. Right around here, I think. And let's see if Lightroom can level it. The left should, yep. Hasn't it seemed like every picture the left has needed to come down a little bit? And this one I definitely agree with that. All right, so now that we've done that, let's come back and let's knock our shadows back down and bring our highlights down a little bit. Let's warm this a little. And I think that's nice. I wish there was more water, but with that rock there, I didn't love that. And so we really kind of have trimmed out the water and are focusing on what's most interesting in here, and that is the sky up above. Ah, good, that's the last one. These always go so much longer than I think. I thought this was going to be a 5 to 10 minute, but I start to edit and start to talk to you all, and it's much longer. As I said, if you want to find out information about submitting images for future critiques, you can go to photorec.tv/support. They start at the $3 a month level. Not only do you get image critiques, but there are other perks too, like my complete series on Lightroom for beginners. Everything from installing it, editing, all of these tips and tricks I just showed, plus a whole lot more are in there. If you found this video helpful, give it a quick thumbs up. And thanks for watching. Goodbye.